Hi, I'm Luke Hanson McDonald, and this is my podcast about family business. So today's interview is with Tony Falbo. He's the founder and owner of Mircom. They are a global manufacturer and distributor of intelligent building solutions such as fire alarms, security alarms, and communication systems. Tony's story is a classic immigrant rags to riches story. He came to Canada from Italy as a young boy in hopes of finding a brighter future. He had incredible work ethic and soon worked his way up through an organization, earning the president title as well as partial ownership. When that business sold to a competitor, Tony was faced with a dilemma. Does he continue to work for someone else, or does he craft his own path? As soon as his non-compete ended, Tony bet everything on his own business, Mircom. He had to remortgage his house during some tough times in the early 90s, but his unbelievable will and tenacity got him through, and now Mircom is a global player with over 700 employees. Tony's story is not only incredible because of his entrepreneurial journey, he's also managed to thread the needle which almost nobody has, bringing all three of his boys successfully into his family business. Tony has now handed over the reins and they run it together, with the eldest as CEO and the other two in business development and in product development, each gravitating towards their own personal skills. You're not going to want to miss this one. This is Beyond the Family Business Podcast. Let's jump into it. Welcome, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Absolutely. So I always start off every interview with the same three questions. Who are you? Where are you from? And what do you do?
Okay. My name is Tony Falbo. I come from Italy, Calabria specifically, and I'm the chief, I used to be the president, but now I'm the chief officer of the company that overlook the overall operation. And I'm there most of the times, even today, at 81 years old. Amazing.
You don't look a day over 60.
Oh, thank you so much.
And what is the name of your business?
We operate as Mircom Technologies Limited. We manufacture fire alarm systems, communication products, usually for high-rise buildings.
Yeah, I see your logos a lot when you walk into a building. I've seen it on the wall quite a bit. So
that's correct.
Yeah.
Especially if you see high-rise buildings in this area, chances are that our products are there today.
Very cool. So what I'd like to start with is maybe you were just talking to me briefly before we got in here, but could you tell me quickly, when did you come to Canada and what was that journey like?
I came to Canada in 1960. As a student, I was going to technical school in Italy. My parents decided to come to Canada, and I came along with them. So I cannot take credit to be in Canada on my own. I followed my parents, and when I look back, that was a great decision, and I'm so happy to be here in Canada.
Yeah, no, it's you were saying you came into Pier 21 and sort of had the classic immigrant story, you know.
Yeah, that's correct. Came to Canada, I tell you, at the very beginning was a little bit of disappointment because I was expecting to see cities like they were in Italy. Unfortunately, when we landed in Halifax, we got on the train, and during the journey from Halifax to Montreal, the only thing I remember seeing were hydro poles and white snow and nothing. And white field. I says, oh my goodness, where's Canada?
Yeah.
But then as we got to Montreal, everything looked normal again.
Yeah, fair enough. And so when did your entrepreneurial story begin? When did you get into business?
Well, okay. I got to go back and tell you that I was in technical school in Italy, came to Canada, and I ended up going to nice school at Central Tech, carrying on some electronics basics and learn about electronics in general. And I started working in Canada the minute I came, because obviously the family required as much help, financial help as possible. So my first job in Canada, I was washing cars, believe it or not, for a number of months. Then I went to a lamp factory assembling lamps for about 3 years. Meanwhile, I was still going to night school in the electronics. And one day I said, assembling lamps, I'm not learning anything. So I go to the unemployment office looking for a job in electronics, which I did. It was a brand new start, a company known as Mircom. So I applied for the job, I got it, and that was the beginning.
And so you started working at Mircom, and what was Mircom?
Well, Mircom, as I was saying, was just starting. There was a company that was trying and did manufacture radio intercoms for homes. And that's what I was doing initially, assembling the radio intercom that usually goes in the kitchen. There's a bunch of speakers going throughout the house, and we were manufacturing those products. From there, we expanded into high-rise apartment intercoms for high-rise buildings. And the big breakthrough came when we designed what we called an emergency voice communication system, which alerted the inhabitants of a building in case of a disaster or an emergency, whatever. So Essential was a glorified paging system. But we were the first to introduce it because we had the intercoms through the building, but we designed the speakers within the apartments, what they call a dual voice coil. So one was used for the communication to the door. The second one was used for emergency call throughout the building. So that put Mircom at a good level, building up a decent business. I became a small partner in '65, a couple years after I started. Because of my aggressiveness, I was, I was determined to get ahead in life. So I made it clear that I wanted to be in business, and that the senior partners, they allowed me a small percentage, and I grew with them till 1968. In '68, the breakthrough came about because the two major partners, one of them didn't like Canada too much because of the cold weather, so he went to Florida and opened up a similar business in Florida. The second one opened up a chain of music stores right across Canada, Music World, and I became the president with a new investor. So my shareholding got somewhat bigger, but I was 24 years old, became the president of the company. And we built the business from 68 all the way to 89. Along the way, in around 1970, there was our competitor here in Canada, in Toronto especially, that they were offering intercom and fire alarm. So we were at a disadvantage because we only had the intercom. So quickly, we became a distributor of a fire alarm product line manufactured Owen Sound, known as Edwards. So we picked up that line and we packaged together with our intercom and fire, and we were competing effectively with Canadian Sounder Signal. And that brought us to about 1970. Fire alarm was a much more stable business, was legislated. So I believed in it very much so. And we hired some additional technical talent, a couple engineers actually from Germany, and we designed our own fire alarm panel. So we combined the fire alarm with the audio system that we already had, and we made a true life safety system good enough for detecting the fire and evacuating inhabitants if it needed to be. So in the 70s, we started getting a lot of momentum going in the the high-rise buildings, whether they were residential, commercial, whatever. And as a matter of fact, our audio package being very well known in those days, one of the American company requested for us to private label for them. This company was Notifier, very well known in the U.S. So we had we private label for them this product, and that put us Mircom on the map in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
A few years after that, we're getting momentum, so we actually opened up offices throughout the U.S. and Canada, and we have introduced a fire alarm system together with the audio into the U.S. market. We got the necessary approvals from ULC, and the momentum kept on going, and we did very, very well till about 89. What happens in 89, our main competitor in Canada, being Edwards, gave us an offer that in those days we said we cannot refuse. So they gave a substantial offer to buy the business. I was a shareholder, but minor shareholder. The main partner decided, in conjunction with me, says, shall we sell? Sure. We sold the business in 1989, as I said before. And the company that bought us the business wanted me to go and work for them. And right from the offset, I told them, look, I am not a good employee. I have my own ideas. I want to have my own control and do the things that I like to do. So they requested a 5 years non-compete. I did not agree to that. I say 5 years is too long. We agreed on a 3-year non-compete. So during those 3 years, I picked up a new line of products from a U.S. customer or a U.S. supplier, and we opened up what we call Guardia service in the Toronto area, and we became a distributor of fire products and service in the fire business for those 3 years. Late 91, early 92, my non-compete expired. So here I am, start Mircom.
Amazing.
Right from scratch. Unfortunately, 92, 93 were really trying years. We had an NDP government, interest rates at all-time high, 14.5% prime.
Wow.
We had rent control, so new construction was more or less dead. So the only work around was retrofit business. And that's when I started. So a lot of my friends were supporting me, but also a number of them said, Tony, do you really want to start a business in Canada at this time? I said, look, when I came from Italy, what did I have? Practically nothing. So in a worst case scenario, goes back to nothing and start from scratch again. All in all, I was determined to start a business, go forward, and build it up to another level. 93, 94, really, really trying years. I had to remortgage my house. But 94, 95, started seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Things started to happen, and construction came back. We were expanding both products and territory. So we were going across Canada. I started going to the U.S. as well. And we built a business, give or take, substantial in year 2000. Now I had to have, we as a family had to have a discussion because our competitors, I had a number of them that they wanted to buy Mircom in those days. So at that point I was more or less on my own, and I had discussion with my 3 kids. Shall we sell the business, or you guys eventually want to join it? Well, the decision was to keep the business as a family business, in which case Mark, my first son, joined the company in 2002, followed by Rick in 2004, and eventually Jason came in 2008, taking over the technical aspect of the business, R&D, and technical services in general. When I look back, that was definitely a good decision because I always make a reference at a snowball effect. It was very difficult to get the business going initially, but after those years, I could see that the business is growing on an ongoing basis, is expanding in Canada, U.S., international markets, and we enjoy, quite a bit of business on a worldwide basis today.
Amazing. That is an incredible story. As I said at the start, it's a real immigrant, rags to riches entrepreneur story. It's just truly incredible and even more unique because you had the foresight, the generosity to include your boys in it and have that discussion with them and get them into the business and involve them in decision making. So my hat's off to you. That is a truly unique story. So there's many things to unpack there. Maybe the first one I would say is when you started your own business and you went through that tough period, what kept you going? Why didn't you give up? Everyone was saying you're crazy to start up again.
Yes, it's the believing in yourself. It's like you have a vision. Say, here, I have to accomplish that particular task, and you got to be strong and do it, knowing damn well that at some point you will find a wall. And all too often, a lot of business, they start, they hit the wall, either they take a detour or they come back. And from the beginning, I said, if and when I find the tough going, I got to get tougher. And got to believe in yourself. And you also got to have a lot of support, including your family, the wife in particular, because to be honest with you, I spent a lot of time in the business, a lot of hours, which unfortunately some of that time by rights should have been dedicated to the kids. But I was lucky enough to have the wife supportive. She looked after the kids while I was building the business. But I was a lot of long hours. And going back to your question, I think it had to do with the will and the vision that you say, here, I got to do it, got to go forward. And I always thought of the bigger companies that at some point in time, there was always a person behind that company that started, whether it was 50 years ago or 100 years ago. But somebody had to start it. So I put myself in that level as well. Say, okay, I'll start. I'll bring it to a certain level, and then hopefully my kids, which they are doing that today, they'll bring it to another level, and the grandkids, which, by the way, already a couple of grandkids joined the business as well.
Oh,
so
amazing.
You may see, I see
That's
the third
awesome.
generation, and who knows, when the sky, I keep on saying, sky's the limit, one day we gonna be hopefully as big or as good or better than our major international competitors.
Yeah. No, with the vision and the passion you have, I don't doubt that. So then my next question would be, was it always part of your vision to bring your boys into the business?
Yes. I personally, yes, I wanted the kids to come in, but I did not sort of force them to join the business. It was their choice, but I was very happy to hear that they like the business and they're involved with it. Because all too often when you have the family all together in the same business, things do not necessarily go the right way. But we've been very fortunate and lucky that so far they're working out. They have their own individual roles, which I think that's part of the success because they do not overlap. One looks after the technical end of the business, Jason. Rick looks after the sales. And Mark, these days, it's more or less my place. He overlooks the business in its entirety, which is doing a fantastic job as well.
Oh, amazing. And how did you find those strengths for each of the boys, or how did they find those individual roles in the business?
A lot of it is natural. Mark and Rick both have a law degree, but they fell into the requirements of the business, and they put themselves into their roles. Rick likes sales, so he's got a nice personality, and that he fits the sales very, very well. Mark, on the other hand, is sort of a general person, likes to look at every aspect of the business. And then there's Jason. Jason went to technical school. He's an engineer, and he look after the technical aspect of it, and he's doing a fantastic job these days.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's very, very cool. It's interesting that they've each found their own spot niche. Naturally. I mean, that's incredible, and also not very common. I mean, you see a lot where, as you said, if you have two people competing for the same spot, it can be a big challenge for sure.
Well, as I said, we were a little bit lucky to, so they found their own spots, and they're doing very, very well in that area. And because of the, having sort of strength in a variety of areas within the company, I think that's overall strength to the company to go to different levels.
So one of the things that we chatted about before we came in here was you were talking about how other families, sometimes the second generation, they were, whether it's because they were born, with the silver spoon, or they want to do something different, the transition from first to second generation is difficult. What values did you and your wife instill in your boys? You think that suited them well, coming from not your immigrant background, but coming from a different lifestyle, yet they've taken the business to a new height?
Yeah, we've been very fortunate that they, all three of them, they follow to a degree my examples. They're humble, that they love people, they apply themselves properly in their own area. They respect everybody in the company, and that makes them very, very successful. If you walk around in our office or factory, everybody loves the kids. Nobody says anything bad about them because they're people's people, and they know what they're doing. And to a degree, I like to think that they're following my footsteps. And the mother, by the way, because I tell you, the mother gave him a lot of good education, and she's a lovely person, and she definitely tells them to follow the family traditions and be as good person as possible.
And where did you learn those values? Was that from your parents or?
Combination, yes, obviously from my parents, but it's being an immigrant, I tell you, there's a lot of disadvantages, but there's also advantages. We came to Canada, which truly we had nothing, and we earned everything that we have, and we've been humble all along. And being as humble as we've been, I truly believe makes you a better person. You appreciate whatever is around you. You appreciate people in general, and that's our own background.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it gives you that grit to, battle through the tough times and as you said, stay humble, which is so important. So back to the family dynamics, as it were. How have you balanced those family dynamics? You've now worked together for decades with your boys. What have you done in the workplace to sort of manage your dad and son relationship versus your boss and team member relationship?
Yeah, well, I tell you, work, there's a lot of respect from their offices. I do not treat them as my kids. I respect their individual jobs. I do not interfere, say, with engineering and or sales and or general management. If I see something that should be improved or changed, I don't do it on my own anymore. I go to them, talk to them, and hopefully we'll implement it in conjunction. So I think that helps the overall situation to eliminate as much friction as possible.
And was that a transition? Did you have to learn how to work together? Do you remember those early days of working with your boys?
Well, put some effort into it, and you learn as you go along. But it all starts with you trying to make a situation work and make it better all the times. All too often, people have arguments, they have discussions, complaining about things. I try to stay away from the complaints as much as possible and try to be as positive as possible. If I do see something that I don't like, I rather than going to them complaining about something, I go from the other way. So well, how about if we do it in a different way? Did you ever look at it this other way? So rather than attacking them, is to go the other way, to be more soft and trying to rectify the situation without causing problems. And I think it's working.
Yeah, obviously it is. And so you've now been in business for so many years. You've been successful for so long. You've done what so many families wish they could do, which is a successful transition from first to next generation. What is the core of your success, for Mircom over this lifetime of the business?
Well, again, it's you believing in yourself, thinking that you can put yourself in a different position by putting your wish or your dream to a different level, and you got to stay on course. You got to believe in it and keep on saying that can be done. Don't get discouraged, because definitely you're going to have all kinds of issues along the way. But I say, hey, that's why we're here. That's why we have a lot of people. And many times people come and say, oh, we have such a big problem. I say, what is the problem? There's no problem. We're here to resolve them. Whatever the problem is, you're going to be positive, and you got to put yourself in an area to understand what the issue is. You got to be a good listener sometime and assess what the situation is and make the best out of it. And every problem can be resolved. It's we're human beings, and there are some issues which they happen every day. But what are people for? To resolve the problems, to go forward and be positive.
That's a brilliant philosophy. And I think, unfortunately, many companies don't operate that way. They get almost too negative, and that's wonderful to hear that's how you approach every day. With that in mind, has it been a learning curve for your boys to learn that philosophy, or is this something that you've taught them throughout their whole life and naturally they brought it to their roles as they stepped in and took over more and more of the day-to-day?
Well, obviously there is a certain time for them to learn more, but the basics were in place in the first place. But as time goes by, they learn more, they apply themselves, and I'm very happy to see them, all three of them, coming to a different level and taking different responsibilities and doing their job at a much higher level now than when they started. But today, they've spent, as you said already, a couple of decades in the case of Mark and, all three of them, because, Jason started in 2008. So
so almost 20 years.
Already, almost 17 years.
Yeah.
So they learned a lot. And in some cases, now I learn from them. Because let's face it, I didn't have the opportunity to go to university, only night schools.
Yeah.
They're all three of them university graduates, so by rights their background is much, much stronger than mine. And I listened to them carefully many, many times, so I learned from them quite a number of things.
That's a super interesting point, is what they brought to the business, because naturally any new leader will take things in a different direction. Are there any particular strategies or any particular moments you can think of that your boys coming in, they added something new to the future of the business?
Definitely. They brought in the professional aspect of it, whether it's written, whether it's in communication, literature, and whatever. Let's face it, I was not at that level. Definitely I could not do it on my own. They're putting the professionality behind the business. taking a catalog, put a price list together, or a catalog, or a new product. They know how to present it to the people, to the customer, at a different level. I couldn't do that. I mean, I knew what the product had to be. I had a lot of imagination of what we could do, but it takes a lot of effort, a lot of know-how to bring the technology or products from a concept to reality and eventually to market on a worldwide basis. So they're pitching in that area, and they're doing a fantastic job.
Very cool. One other thing you talked to me about before the interview was how you looked at your business versus your competitors. And some of your competitors are massive global players, on the billions of scale. But yet you've constantly carved out a niche. Could you speak a little bit about how have you carved out that niche over time?
That's correct. Our competitors, they're all multinationals. They've been around for in excess of 100 years. And it was impossible at the beginning to compete with them from A to Z. So I had to take a portion of their offering, and we specialize really in high-rise buildings, taken away from, say, office buildings and/or different products which we did not have at the time. So in the area that we have elected to market in, we were very effective, but did not cover the spectrum as they do. So a little bit at a time, we have augmented the products to another level, and it's taking all these years. So finally, now, after we're 30 some odd years in business, we have a complete line that we can compete with them effectively from A to Z. But still, today, they have the history. They have the products which they've been supplying in the marketplace for 100 years. So it takes time for us to be at that level, but sooner or later, we'll get there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had time in a manufacturing business myself, and one of the big challenges that I've faced is trying to decide where you go next. And you can maybe see the vision at the end of the day, as you said, the whole product offering of A to Z. But how do you decide over time, what was the next thing you would go after incrementally?
Yes, we've been growing both from a product standpoint, to fulfill the total requirement, and expansion geographically. So today, our big job is really to expand it geographically in different parts of the world. We're doing reasonably well in Canada, as we are coast to coast. We have a lot of growth to be had in the U.S. And South America, in markets where the so-called UL, which is underwriter laboratory listing, is a must. So there's a lot of markets outside of North America which were there partially, but there is quite a bit of additional business that we could have, and we got to devote time and effort to get there.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. And has it been a difficult transition as you've gone into more global markets like South America, between the language barriers or cultural differences?
Definitely. There are some issues. However, we've been lucky enough to hire local people in that area that they're bilingual. In some cases, they speak more than 2 languages. Because you're absolutely correct. In order to sell into those markets, you got to speak their languages. So we are getting quite a bit of business already from South America, in the Middle East, Far East, but still much more to do over the next few years. So Mark,
like
Rick, and Jason, you hear me. You can really get after those markets and get more.
Yeah. The sky's the limit, as you say.
Sky's the limit.
Absolutely. We're coming close to the end now, so a couple more questions. One is, what advice would you have for somebody who, owns a business, they're now thinking about succession with the next generation, their kids, in their own business, what advice would you give them as far as how to approach that? And, what do you think is important?
Well, it's important for them to really have a candid discussion with the family and see whether the family wants to step into the business or they have no interest. Because in a lot of cases, the parents they start whatever and the kids, they go in different fields, they have no interest. That being the case, you have no choice really but to sell the business. However, if your family is interested, you should do everything possible to bring them in, teach them, give them the support that they require, and grow the family business to different levels, which can be done if you want to do it.
And as far as when they actually come into the business, is there anything special as far as, when your sons joined the business, where did they start, or how did you sort of, move them through the company, as it were?
Yes, well, to a degree, you have to really ask them what they like to do, because, no sense of let them do something that their own culture, their own background doesn't allow that. So usually, in a business, there's a variety of jobs to be had. So if you ask the person what he likes to do, well, put him in that field, definitely will be much easier for him to step in and be successful right then and there. Once he's in, then he can learn other facets of the business. But initially, I would say, ask them what they prefer. Are they accountants? They like accounting. They like to be in sales. They like to be in production. Whatever their background dictates, that's where they should start and build it up from there.
And your boys, did they work outside of the family business?
Yes, they did. All three of them.
And so what value did that have of them working somewhere else before joining?
I think that was very, very important because they seen how their business are running, how strict in some cases they are. So coming to your own business, you got to pursue those rules and regulations that in the morning you got to come and work at 8 o'clock or 8:30, not at 12. And be so, but also a lot of knowledge that they bring from whatever they learned. Because in the case of Mark and Rick, they were in their own field for a few years, so they come to the business and they have some experience. They know how to deal with people. They know how to deal with business in general. So definitely being outside, having some experience helps in the long run in your own business.
Well, that's great advice. Last question. How about as far as your own transition, out of the business? And I know you're still involved, but many patriarchs or, leaders have a hard time handing over the reins and stepping back. What advice would you have for somebody who's maybe a bit further down the road? They're working with the next generation, and it's their time to now take a higher level role and not be as involved day to day.
Yes, I have. I've been a hands-on guy from day one. I love the business, but I also realize that at a certain time, it's time to pass on the reins to somebody else, give them advice, but you got to be able to step back. Because if you're persistent on top of them, doesn't allow the people below you to progress and do the right things on their own, because they got to use their own ideas. So at my age now, yes, I'm very much interested in seeing what everybody's doing, but as I was telling you before, I do not go and change anything unless I discuss with the proper managers, give my input, what I feel we should do, and step back. A lot of people ask me, look at, you're 81 years old, what are you doing in the business? Why don't you quit? I tell you, that's my life. I enjoy going to work. If I'm in Toronto, I'm in the office practically every day. I do golf 2-3 times a week. But let's face it, to me, work is my life. I love what I see. I want to see the business prosper, get to different levels, and give my input whatever I think that some input is required. But again, I'm very lucky to have 3 sons and additional managers, which they're doing a fantastic job, and they're quite capable of bringing the business to different levels.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this wonderful story. I've really, really enjoyed it, and I wish you all the best to you and your family.
Thank you so much, Luke. It's very much appreciated.
All right.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. This is Beyond the Family Business Podcast. Take care.